Hi, and welcome to this presentation on the descriptive essay, The Significant Place. This week's assignment is to come up with a rough draft of your significant place descriptive essay. And here are some of the things that you'll want to know. Number one, you must write about a significant place that's either positive or negative for you. Ideally, you'd be able to go and visit that place if it's possible. And the reason for this is if you are able to go and visit the place, you'll be surprised at what you might notice. If we try to describe something, maybe a vacation, from a photograph, we might get a pretty good description, but really what we're describing is just what we are seeing. We're not able to kind of enter into the other senses like sound or taste or touch or smell. And so we want to try to enter into all five senses. And so while describing from a photograph isn't an awful thing, we'll get some good description from there. And from our memories, we'll get some good description. But if we can go and visit a place, it makes the description much more authentic. An example of that, if you go to a cafe that maybe is your favorite, you can sit at a table and kind of pre-write or even write your essay real time. So what am I seeing and experiencing? What am I hearing? What am I smelling? Back deck, you might be able to do the same thing. As I'm sitting on this deck, what is it that I'm looking at? What is it that I'm feeling? What's the weather like? Is there wind? What am I smelling? Maybe the neighbors are barbecuing. And so that description just becomes more authentic. So I really encourage you to go and visit your place if that's possible. The idea here is that you're going to recapture the sensations and details of the place for your reader, so that as a reader, I can be there with you. So you'll have to use good words, great description, and really put us into that scene where you are. Now, the whole aim of this paper is to use descriptive writing, and there's a lot of ways to do that. There's a lot of content this week, kind of going over the how to be descriptive. One of those ways is through the use of figurative language. The ones that are listed, simile, metaphor, allusion, personification, onomatopoeia, hyperbole, and understatement, are probably the most common. It's not an exhaustive list, and you'll see that. There's a URL that I'll take you to that has a ton of examples of figurative language. These are the ones that are listed here on this PowerPoint anyway that are the most common. I'll want you to use the show versus tell technique. You'll see some content on that this week, and that essentially means instead of saying that I'm angry, a telling statement, show me. Give me some, what did I say? What did I do? What are my senses telling me that show you, the reader, or me, the reader, that I'm angry? So we want a showing paragraph versus a telling sentence, and there's more on that in the content this week. We also want to use sensory details. Sensory details are those details that will appeal to the five senses. They're very effective in description. And lastly, we want to be careful about specific word choice. We want to be careful about our use of nouns and verbs, making sure that those are what we really want it to say, that it's specific. And there's another, this is also called connotation, which you'll see in content. And when I look at connotation, a word like run, it's pretty boring. Am I sprinting? Am I jogging? What kind of running am I doing? And so there's different visions or visuals that we get in our head as I say those words, probably. Jogging is different from sprinting, yet they both mean run. We want to make sure that you include a dominant impression in your paper. So that's the focus or the tone. What feeling do you want readers to get from your piece? We also want to be aware of the connotation of words because that's going to play into our dominant impression. There's a whole slide presentation on dominant impression. Be very careful because this is what your whole paper kind of revolves around. It's the one word that you want your reader to really take away from your place. I want my reader to see this waiting room as a stressful place. I want my reader to see the ER as chaotic. I want my reader to see this trail or this park as peaceful and relaxing. And so if you pick your word, now all of your details will revolve around that. More about the assignment. These are more of the nitty-gritty details. Your narrator must be stationary, meaning your narrator cannot move. So if I'm using the ER as my chaotic place, and that's what the dominant impression that I want to build, am I sitting at the check-in desk where I kind of have a vantage point of everything? Or am I sitting in one of the rooms and I can hear, the busyness that's going on outside? I can't move. So I can't move I can't be in the desk for half of my paper and then in the room for the other half. So you have to be very careful about what vantage point you choose. Now, some examples of this, I had some students who wrote about sporting events. One of those was a football game, and the vantage point for that student was in the three-point stance. So he was on the line right before a play was about to take place, and so from that three-point stance, he was able to describe what was going on around him. So he talked about the smells from the concession stand. He talked about what he heard, the people in the stands shouting. He talked about what was going on the field, the referee. He talked about all of those things from his three-point stance. And of course, the whistle would blow and he would stand up. And so then he had the opportunity to kind of move around a little bit, but he's not moving much more than just a couple of feet in the whatever direction. I had another student whose vantage point was from the top of a Ferris wheel. And so from the top of the Ferris wheel, she described the amusement park and what she saw and smelled and heard as she was sitting atop that Ferris wheel. Now, the reason for that, and I'll use an example of maybe a nature trail. To be stationary, you might stand or sit in one particular spot and describe what happens around you. The reason why we don't want you to move is if you start moving, you're describing what's going on this 5-mile walk. You're just kind of skirting over things. I see this, and I smell this, and I taste this. I see this again. I see another bird. It's very shallow. Your descriptions are shallow. And what we want you to do is to go into depth. So as you're sitting on that trail, you might see a bird, but now go into depth. What is that bird doing? What color is it? Do you know what kind it is? Is it singing? Is it eating? Does it have, a nest full of young birds? What exactly is going on with that bird? And then maybe you take a look to your left and you see a biker coming down. Well, describe that biker. How are they moving? What are they doing? Maybe you turn to the other side and you see a tree. So go into depth with that tree. So we don't want shallow description and just a list. We want things to go into depth. You also want to make sure that you're consistent in terms of your tense and your point of view. So what that means is if you are telling this story like it's happening right now, that's present tense, you want to make sure that your entire essay is taking place right now. If you intend to talk about it in the past, then all of your paper needs to take place in the past. The point of view consistency, we want to keep to either first person or third person. So you're either going to be the one doing all of the action, using the word I as your pronoun, or you're going to be an observer watching other people. And so whatever the case might be, just make sure that you stick to the same one. So if you're the main actor, you continue to be the main actor throughout. If you're observing, make sure that you use those kind of words throughout: he, she, it, they. Lastly, a little point about organization. Organization must fit your subject and be easy to follow. Now, the problem with organization with this essay is sometimes it becomes like a ping pong match, because how do you describe one thing and then go to another? And so sometimes if we're using kind of cue words, we might say to the left, to the right, on top of, below. Those are good transitional words. We want to have kind of a logical movement. So we can arrange spatially. We can start at what's, to the right of us and kind of work to what's on our left. We can start at the top, we can work to the bottom. What you don't want to do is mix all of that stuff up. So to my right, I see a tree, and on top of me, I see the clouds in the sky, and off to my right, here comes a biker, and below me, I see the snake. We don't want to necessarily do that. We want to have it be a little more logical. And so you can move spatially, left to right, near to far, top to bottom, left to right. but you want to be very careful about how you do that. Now, there are certain things that may call your attention. And so, you might be talking about the tree to your left, and then a bird, might tweet, and then that takes your attention to the right. So there's some ways that you can kind of make it flow a little smoother. So use those cue words like to my right, to my left, above or below. That helps. But then try to make it kind of a logical organization. You can also arrange from smallest to largest, softest to loudest, or least important to most important. But organization does become important in this essay because we want, again, you want your readers to kind of understand what it is that you're describing. Some other points to consider: we do want your paper to be about 4 pages in length and at least 7 paragraphs, so include an intro, a body, and a conclusion. It should be proofread and free of errors in punctuation and spelling. We'll get more into the grammar as we continue throughout the class. So right now I'm just looking for kind of the spelling and periods in the right spot, that kind of thing. And we'll work more with the finer points of grammar in the weeks to come. Should be double spaced in 12-point Times New Roman, and should also include a creative title. And again, I'll just mention, picking a spot that you're really interested in and that has meaning to you is extremely important. So please take time to pick a good topic and to do some good pre-writing. You'll see that in the assignments section. I wish you the best of luck, and if you have any questions, feel free to send an email or a quick phone call. Thank you.